Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Pavlak. I am a systems engineer with Fortinet, and today I am going to be doing a demonstration on Fortinet's access point and switches, also known as FortiAPs and FortiSwitches. So to start off, I'm going to go through a short slide deck, and then I will go into a GUI demonstration both for FortiAPs and FortiSwitches today. So to start off, what I am going to be covering today, we are going to go through the deployment and management options that you will have for both access point and switches. Next, we are going to cover FortiLink, which is a proprietary management protocol from Fortinet. Next, we're going to go into FortiLAN Cloud, which is a cloud management option brought to you by Fortinet. And then we are going to go through a GUI overview, both of FortiLink and FortiLAN Cloud. And we're going to end today's conversation going over the device models and any type of sizing discussions that we need to have. So there are three management options that you have for both switches and access points. We have our traditional standalone mode, where those are not centrally managed. You would log into each access point or each AP individually via GUI, API, or the command line, and you would manage all of those individually by going to their IP address individually. Next is our FortiLink option. That is where your switches and your access points are all centrally managed by the FortiGate firewall in your environment. And we will cover FortiLink in further detail a little bit later in this slide. And lastly, we also have our cloud management option, which is known as FortiLAN Cloud. We will be going over that as well here. So what is FortiLink? FortiLink is a proprietary protocol that was put together by Fortinet. They basically took a bunch of already existing protocols and bundled those all up together to create our own protocol known as FortiLink. What FortiLink does is it will discover devices automatically in your network, and it also lets you manage your switches and APs all over the FortiLink created between the FortiGate and your access point or switch. What does FortiLink give you? Brings you integrated security. So it extends the security from your FortiGate all the way down into your LAN access, and also gives you simplicity. So basically it's plug and play, and it's all centrally managed from the same GUI that you would be managing your FortiGate from. And it has a lower cost of ownership. Basically, you don't need any extra licenses to manage your access points or switches via your FortiGate. All of that comes included already when you buy your FortiGate. It comes with FortiOS. The only type of licensing that you would need is any type of support licensing. So there's no additional licensing costs for management. Next, we're going to go into FortiLAN Cloud deployments. I have FortiLAN set up, but mine are already registered in there. So I'm going to go through a couple screenshots with you just so you can get an idea of how you would deploy and manage via FortiLAN Cloud. So first, you would log into support.fortinet.com, which is basically just FortiCloud. So you would go to your FortiCloud account, you would make an account or sign into your existing account, and you would register your devices. So you need to get all of your serial numbers from your APs and your switches. You can import those manually, or you can import via an Excel spreadsheet. Next, you would log into FortiLAN Cloud, and you would basically select the access points or switches that you just put into your inventory in your FortiCloud account. Those are synced between FortiLAN Cloud and your regular FortiCloud account. So those are synced. So once you sign into FortiLAN Cloud and you go to deploy APs or deploy switches, those will automatically show up in here. And then you would just click the button next to which ones or all of them that you want to deploy. Next, you would just select the APs from inventory like we just talked about. You would select any type of tag that you would want to assign to those devices. And basically what the tagging allows you to do is just deploy specific profiles down. So you don't need to deploy profiles individually. You can just apply the tag, and then whatever profiles have been assigned to that tag will automatically get pushed down for easier management. After you do that, you will select what logical network that you want to assign those devices to. So you basically, in your FortiLAN Cloud account, you would, for each site that you have, let's say, so you have like a headquarters, and then you have, let's say, a Charlotte division, a New York City division, you would create a different logical network for each one of those, just for easier visibility and management between all of your different sites there. So you would basically select what site that you want to deploy those at. Lastly, you set the different type of administration options that you want to activate on your switch or APs. So just your admin access and then an admin password if you want to set that up. Lastly, it gives you a little preview of what your deployment is going to look like. So it gives you the serial number of the access point or switch that you're deploying. In this example, it's going to be an access point. So it's going to show you what SSIDs are going to be being broadcasted by that access point. And then it gives you the different profile that is actually assigned via that tag that you gave it. After you've done your deployment, you can click down into your access points and you get a status view of all your different devices that were just assigned. So you just get a little bit of a look at what's going on there in that network. Next, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into our access points, and I got a little nerdy when I was setting up this this slide deck here, and I really like this image. This is a picture of the scientist. Name is James Clerk Maxwell. He was the original scientist who came up with the theory of radio frequency and radio waves, that they actually existed. So just got a little nerdy with that one. So what you can expect from our Fortinet FortiAPs, basically we have access points that have Wi-Fi 5 or they have Wi-Fi 6 technology. That's also going to include the newest 6E access points. We have 4x4 MIMOs for high throughput. You can also go 2x2 for a little bit slower speeds, but better on the price point. We have access points with internal or external antennas, and we have a whole variety of different antennas to choose from if you needed better coverage. The external antenna options, they do come with stub antennas already, but then we also have like directional or patch antennas as well that you can purchase. You have highly customizable radios. So for each radio, for each access point, there comes 2 radios inside. For the U series access points, those also come with 3 radios. But you can customize those radios how you want to operate. So if you want both radios to operate in 5 gigahertz, you can do that. You can do 1 in 5, 1 in 2.4. And then for the 3 radio options, you can have that third radio added as an additional 5 gigahertz radio, or you can have that as a monitoring, dedicated monitor radio. We also have outdoor access points that are IP67 certified for any type of outdoor coverage that you need, and also meshing, mesh deployments as well. If you have like a remote security guard post, let's say, and you don't want to extend actual physical cabling out there to get that network access out there, you can just do a mesh connection there. We also have wall plates for in-room installations as well. Those are just a couple features that I wanted to cover. There's many, many more with our access points. This is just a little example of how you can customize those radios. If it's got 2 radios in there, you can have them both operating on 5. You can have one on 5, one on 2.4. Those radios are also going to be doing monitoring when there is downtime in the network. You're still going to be getting monitoring of the environment to pick up rogue SSIDs, pick up signal strengths, etc. For the U series APs, those come with 3 radios, so you can have both on 5, one on 5, one on 2.4, and then you can have that third radio, just a dedicated monitoring radio, like I was mentioning before. And now we're going to go into our switches. I threw in here my favorite GIF of all time. Every time I see this, it makes me laugh. Just picturing what she was supposed to be doing with that sheet of paper and then pulling the cable, and then everything goes out. So it's just a good laugh there. So we have a broad range of switches here. We have entry-level switches, which are the 100 series. Those are going to be 8 to 48 ports. Those are for desktops or wiring closets. We have our mid-range switches, which is the 200 series. Those go from 24 to 48 ports. We have our premium series, which is the 400 series. And then we have our aggregation switches, which are going to be the 500 switches. So a lot of different options to choose from there. We cover a wide variety of any type of use case that you need. And that's gonna do it for the slide deck here. So I'm just gonna jump right into the GUI. I'm gonna cover the FortiLink deployment and management first, and then I will go into just a little bit of FortiLAN Cloud at the end here. So this is my home environment. You would sign into your FortiGate, and if you come under here under dashboards, if you click the Wi-Fi one, you get a nice little pre-built dashboard here. This is going to be customizable, just like any other FortiGate. You can make these bigger, smaller. You can rearrange them. You can add widgets, delete widgets. So it's a nice little, just high level, centralized view for your access points here. You can see how many clients are connected. You can just see channel utilization, signal strength. So you can just get like a high level overview of how your Wi-Fi, your radio environment is operating, and take any actions that's needed. Or you can see any rogue APs that are being detected. I have a high density area where I live in, so it's picking up a lot of rogue access points. So I don't necessarily pay attention to that, but that's a really good widget to have there. And then if we scroll down to network, I'm going to transition here into FortiSwitch now. So I'm just going to walk you through how you would actually go through a deployment of FortiSwitch. So you would come into your network and then interfaces here. And then we have our FortiLink interface here. So you would I have mine, my FortiLink set up on interface 2 here on my FortiGate, and I have my FortiSwitch plugged into port 2. So whichever port that you're going to be plugging your switch into, you would come into your interfaces and you would assign that interface to FortiLink. In these options, you can basically leave alone. These are the default values, and those are totally fine for FortiLink here. And then once you have that set up and you plug in your switch there, it's automatic. The FortiGate will automatically create that FortiLink down to your switch. And if you come under here for your Wi-Fi and switch controller, and you go to managed FortiSwitches, you should see your switch automatically populate here. It may take a couple minutes, so just be patient with that. Once it does populate here, you'll need to actually authorize that switch to join the security fabric. So you would basically, this would say authorize, you would click on it, and then you would click authorize, and then that will enable all of the management for that switch. From this page here, you can also just get like a high-level overview of some statistics and telemetry stuff with the switch that the FortiGate picks up. Let's see. You have a bunch of different options here. You can do a firmware upgrade. You can reboot the switch. You can factory reset it. And then you can also connect to the CLI directly from the FortiGate. And then if you click diagnostics and tools, you just get some additional information from the switch here. So you can see kind of like what's plugged in and the overall performance of your switch from here. So just a really good additional dashboard to give you some information here. So once you've plugged in your switch, you have your FortiLink set up, you plugged in your switch, you've authorized your switch. So now how do you set up your VLANs and all that other management here? So from now that we have the FortiLink set up, you can come down to FortiSwitch VLANs, and this is where you're going to be creating all of your different VLANs. So I created a couple different VLANs here, just for an example here. So I created this VLAN 50. So what you would do is you would hit create new. So let's create VLAN 51 here. So let's just say this is going to be our employee VLAN. Let's just say here for the VLAN ID number. So this is just going to be the VLAN ID. This is just going to be the traditional. It supports up to like 1,024 VLANs. You can choose between VLANs 1 and 4,094. So let's just set a VLAN 51 now. Role is going to be LAN. The address, so let's just set up a manual address here. So let's do 172.16.20.2. And then we will make that a /24 network, let's say. So we're going to set up management on this interface here. So we're going to set up HTTPS access. We're going to enable pinging. And then we are also going to set up a DHCP server from the FortiGate. So anybody who plugs in and gets onto VLAN 51 will be able to get an IP address. Automatically fills in these details for you here. So we're going to do IP3 to 254. And then you get all of your other additional DHCP options here. So let's go ahead and create this here. One thing to also add here, you can just, if you say we're setting up like a guest network and you didn't want the guest to be able to talk to anything on your network, you can check off this block intra VLAN traffic, and that would the switch would automatically block anything going to any other VLANs that are created here for you. So let's go ahead and hit OK. So now we've set up this VLAN. So now how do we actually assign VLANs to different ports? So if you come under FortiSwitch ports, we have all of our different ports laid out here. You get some information on this port. So I have something plugged into port 2, so that shows up as connected. All these other ones are down, and then it will also show you which ports are PoE capable. So I have a 24-port switch. My ports 1 through 12 are PoE capable. So it has the electric bolt there. You can see the enabled features on it. So these are the default that come on it. So we obviously have SCP enabled on all of our ports. And then we, by default, we have them all set up as edge ports. So now if you want to change it to like an access port, you would, so Fortinet calls them native VLANs. That's also known as access mode ports. So to change the VLAN on a port, you would click the pencil icon here, and then it brings up all the different VLANs that you've created, and then you can assign a VLAN to that port. So then I plug my device into port 3. I'm going to be assigned automatically to VLAN 50. And then you can also set your allowed VLANs to flow through that port. Default value is going to be all, but you can change that and customize that however you'd like there. And then you just get some additional information on the ports here too. This is just high level overview, kind of looking over at your ports here. You can also do switch port security policies here. So if you wanted to set up like 802.1x access, you would set that up here, and you would assign that to your different ports as well. So if you wanted people to actually have to like sign in with username or password, or do like MAC address checking, you would set that up here. You can also do that dynamically on ports as well. You would set that up under this interface as well. I do not have this set up now, but that's a great feature for some extra added access edge security. The last thing I'm going to touch on here is NAC policies. So there's a like a little bit of a miniature NAC built into the FortiGate and FortiLink for your switches and access points. So this is network access control. So basically what that's going to do for you is you can set up like characterization rules that could say, let's just go into one now. So if I wanted to set up a NAC policy for, let's say I have some VoIP phones that are going to plug into my network, and I want to dynamically assign those to the correct VLAN. So I would come under my NAC policies here, and you can just you can set this up under any one of these different options here. A very common one is going to be being it by OUI vendor ID. So basically you can set up just the first 6 characters of the MAC address, and then you can set up a wildcard for the last. So it's going to be basically matching the OUI vendor, and then it will assign it to whatever VLAN ID that you set it up for. So this feature with the wildcards here at the end of it, this is only available on FortiOS 6.4.6 or higher. So if you want to do that, just make sure you're on that version. And then you would click down here to assign VLAN. And then this is all of our different VLANs. So let's say if we had like a phone VLAN set up, a VoIP VLAN, it would populate here, and then you would click it. And if you plug in a phone to the port, it's going to go through this check. It's going to see that it matches this OUI vendor, and it's going to automatically assign it to this VLAN. We also have a separated feature. We have an actual dedicated FortiNAC device, and that's going to give you a lot more granular detection rules and characterization of your devices. Because, for example, I mean, you can spoof a MAC address. So you could also, through the FortiNAC device, you could also set up like different characterization rules. Like we know we have different like signatures for different devices. So if you plug in, say, another vendor's phone, let's just say like a Cisco phone, when you plug in those phones have characterizations where they go through and they send different traffic, and we've basically set up different profiles that match to what a Cisco phone does when it plugs in. So you get a lot more granular control over how you're going to characterize those devices and what VLANs they get assigned to. So there is a small NAC built in here, like you see. If you wanted more granular control and a lot more different options for a NAC device, we do have a FortiNAC, which is something that we could look at as well. This is going to be for FortiAP. So this could do this on the AP level. So if they're Wi-Fi phones, this could be controlled by your FortiAPs as well. So that's going to cover it for the switches. So as you can see here, basically super easy to manage. Everything's controlled from this single dashboard here. Your FortiGate, your APs, and your switches all controlled directly from your FortiGate. No extra licenses needed for that. Just comes directly in there. So now I'm going to transition into FortiAP. This is going to follow the same, basically the same deployment as what your switches are going to need. You don't need that dedicated FortiLink interface that I covered at the beginning. This is basically you could plug this into any interface on your switches and come into any interface on the FortiGate, and it's going to dynamically like see that it's a FortiAP, and it's going to form that FortiLink here. So no dedicated interface needed for it. Once you plug in your FortiAP and that traffic reaches up to the FortiGate, it's going to automatically detect that, create that FortiLink between the gate and the AP. And once you come into managed FortiAPs, it should show up here. Again, might take a couple minutes, so just be patient. Once it does auto-populate here, you would check it off and you would authorize that access point. Once it's authorized, it'll show up as online. And then once you actually go through all of your management stuff and configurations, those will also all populate here, just to give you kind of like a brief overview of that access point. If you right click here, you also get a bunch of different management options. Again, like rebooting, you can do firmware upgrades from the FortiGate. You can assign different profiles and different diagnostics, just like you saw for the FortiSwitches. So once you've got your access point plugged in, you've authorized it, you can start actually going through your configurations. So first, what you're going to want to do is come under your operation profiles. So this is where we're going to be configuring how we want our radios to actually function on the FortiAP. There's all these default profiles that are already made for you from Fortinet. So you can use these pre-done ones, or you can edit the pre-done ones, or you could just create a whole new one. So I have a U43433F in my environment. So I'm going to use the default profile that's made here and just tweak it a little bit. So I have it set for dual 5G. I don't really have any 2.4 devices in my environment, so I don't need that radio to be operating there. So I am going to activate the dual 5G option here. And then you can set up 802.1x authentication. You can set up the how you want administration access for those individual access points. And then you have your radio configurations down here. So we're going to set it for access points. I do not have any the U series APs. You can do intrusion prevention directly from the AP itself. You would set up different profiles and you would assign these profiles here. So that would do scanning on that radio for you. I'm going to turn that off for now though. Next, we're going to come down to radio resource provision. So with this turned on, your APs are going to dynamically select the best channel to operate on, and it's also going to select the best, just the best channel to operate on. If you basically how that works is it's going to go through and scan the environment. If you have the dedicated radio, it's going to use that one. If you have just two radios in your EP during downtime, it's going to be doing that scanning of the environment. Basically picking the best channel to operate on based on interference, the wireless environment as a whole. Make that decision and pick the best channel. You can also get a lot of granular control with that too. If you come under here under Wi-Fi settings, It's called DARP, Dynamic Antenna Radio Resource Provisioning, I believe is what that stands for. But you can set it to run at a certain schedule. If you don't want the APs to be changing in the middle of the workday, you can set it on a different schedule to like happen at night or early in the morning. You can also, you can have it change during the workday. If you don't have it, you just have it running on like a regular schedule. If it does make that decision to change channels, it's going to send out 5 CSA frames, channel switch announcement frames out. It's going to send 5 of those to basically just as a broadcast, letting everybody know that we're about to change. So it sends 5 of those, and then we do the change. So there shouldn't be much of a hiccup at all. But if you don't want to be changing during the middle of the workday, you get that granular control of when you want DARP to be functioning on the AP. Back over to our profile here. So you can select the protocols that we're actually going to support on this radio. I don't want these legacy protocols to be operating. I only have AX AC devices, so I have it operating on this mode, and then you can select your channel width. I don't have a lot of interfering APs here, so I'm going to be operating. I've done channel bonding and turned it into an 80 megahertz channels. If you do, you can actually manually set what channels you want to operate on. You would turn off radio resource provisioning, and you would actually select the channels that you want to operate on. So you get that control if you want to auto select channels or if you want to just manually select channels. I recommend using radio resource provisioning because if anything is, I mean, wireless is very dynamic. Things are always changing in a wireless environment. So if something changes and there's a better channel to operate on, I want that to happen. So I have radio resource provisioning activated here. And then you can come down to transmit power mode. So you can set it to auto. I would recommend setting it to auto as well. The default values are between 10 and 17 dBm. You can adjust that accordingly however you want, or you could set it on basically a percentage, or you can set an exact dBm value. Next, we have the actual SSID mode. So we have tunnel mode, which basically creates a cap WAP tunnel back to from the AP back to the FortiGate. And you can assign, you can have different like subnets operating from the access point. So if you have like your wired LAN is operating on like a 172 address, you want your wireless to be like on a 192, you want to have it completely different, separated out VLAN there. You could set this to tunnel mode and you would accomplish it that way. If you wanted your SSIDs to be operating basically like there's no change between like the wired LAN and the wireless, you could set this to bridge mode. So we're not doing any cap WAP tunnel back to the AP. We are just basically acting as a transparent bridge between the wireless and the wired network. And then you could also set it as a manual here. And then we also want to just leave monitor channel utilization enabled. And then you have this option for every single radio included. So I have that U series. So I have the 3 radios and I have my 3rd radio set for a dedicated monitor. So I'm always monitoring the environment, not just during downtime. And my radio 2 is again in the 5 gigahertz. It's going to be matching my radio 1. Next, you can come down to FortiPresence. FortiPresence is another feature that Fortinet has created. It's basically used for location analytics and additional wireless analytics. This is an additional license that you would need to purchase, and there's a different login. There's a different login for that. FortiPresence, you can have it basically it's like a VM. You could spin it up as a VM where all the APs would be sending their location data and all that different data to. You can also, that comes in a cloud option as well. So I have FortiPresence Cloud, so all of my APs are sending location analytics up to FortiPresence. Just a use case for that is for like in a retail environment, you get a heat map of where people are walking around and lingering in your environment, so you can kind of see where the heavy traffic areas are in your retail store, and you can make decisions where to set up like different like different like what are they called, like model setups where you would like put out things to show to customers. That's what I'm looking for there. Can't find the exact wording for it. So let's see here. We also integrate with Ekahau and AeroScout, so if you have those, you can turn those on here. So we are good to go with this profile. You can also set up QoS profiles as well here. The next, after you, so now just to recap, so we've plugged in our AP, we've authorized it, we have that link, we've provisioned our radios, how we want those to operate. Next, you're going to set up your actual SSIDs. I am from Buffalo, New York, so go Bills. I named my SSID Go Bills. So you can create a new one here. You can edit an existing one. So let's go ahead and just create a new one. And let's say this is going to be like a guest SSID. So we're going to set this in tunnel mode. And we are going to set an IP address for this interface. We can do 192.168.20.1. We are going to set up a DHCP server because we do want to set up the FortiGate to hand out IP addresses. So again, set up the management. This is exactly what we did for the FortiSwitches. This is just for the FortiAPs now. So the exact same thing, just a little bit different down here. So let's say for a lot of people use captive portals for guest SSIDs. So you could set up like username and passwords that you want them to enter, or you just want like a basic disclaimer to come up when they sign into that SSID. You would set your security mode setting here to captive portal. And then you can set it to authentication, where they would be, once they try to access the web page, it would redirect them to the captive portal where they are prompted to enter in a username and password. Or you could set up an external captive portal. If you have like a captive portal that you've configured on your own, like on your own web server, you would put that in there. But let's just say we're doing local authentication via the FortiGate. You would set up user groups, and you would set up users into those user groups. And then the end user would enter in their username and password. And if it passes, they're allowed access. If not, they're showed a denied screen. So that's just a basic setup for like a guest SSID. And then you have your different additional options down here. You can enable quarantine and host. You could set up one of your NAC profiles to operate on this SSID. You can do broadcast suppression. You can block intra VLAN traffic via the block intra SSID option here. You can also get granular and put in a schedule for when you want that SSID to actually be broadcast. So if you only want to broadcast it during work hours, you can set that up here. And then there's a bunch of additional options here that you have. We aren't going to get that granular. So I basically skipped all these options. One additional thing you can do here for the APs is you can set up a layer 3 ACL rules on your APs. You would come under these protection profiles and layer 3 firewall profiles, create new, and you can set up a basic IPv4 or IPv6 ACL rules directly on the AP, which is convenient if if you were to set those up on the FortiGate, that traffic would go over your LAN and then eventually be blocked by your FortiGate, but that's a lot of unnecessary traffic over your LAN. So set up those rules directly in your AP, and then that traffic wouldn't even make it onto the LAN. It would be directly blocked on the AP. So just convenient there. And then if you do get the U-series APs, like I was mentioning before, the U-series APs, you can set up intrusion prevention directly on the AP itself, and you would set up those profiles here. And you have all these different options here. So now we've got our radios provisioned, how we want them to operate, and we have our SSIDs configured. You can set up different tags for those different configurations, and then you could set up, you can assign these profiles to the access points here. Let's see what's next here. So if you click on the Wi-Fi clients here, so now our access points are up and running. We've provisioned them. We have the SSIDs operating. Now we are in production, and we're off to the races. Now, once you get into like the monitoring and such, if you click the Wi-Fi clients here, this gives you just a look at who's connected, and it gives you a really good look into what channel they're connected on, what kind of bandwidth rates they're getting, signal strength, signal to noise ratio. Here you can see how long they've been associated for. And then let's say we wanted to get some additional data from this client. You can click on it and hit diagnostics and tools, and you get a really good look into what this client is doing. So you can see there's signal strength, signal to noise ratio, what band they're operating on, all the different like MAC address, IP address of this phone, and then you get into the logging of this device. You can see the different applications, the destinations, policies that they've gone through, and then you can click on the logs and you can get some logging from that device here. You can also disassociate clients. If you click the disassociate button, you can like kick them off the wireless network, or you can manually quarantine a device. Same thing over into the FortiSwitch clients here as well. Once things start plugging into your network, you will get a list of things here. Just to touch on that quarantine option again, that's kind of like a reactive approach. Once we get into like the security driven networking, we don't really want to be reacting. We want to be proactive. So that's going to kind of touch into the different automation that the FortiLink is going to give you. If we come over under here under security fabric and we touch under automation, we can set up some different automation profiles here. So this is just an added benefit. If you were to basically enable the security fabric, all of our devices talk to each other. They share telemetry data. They also can share automation stitches. So that's just an added benefit of having FortiAPs and FortiSwitches along with a FortiGate in your environment. So let's just say like we had a compromised host plug into the network. We want to shut that device off. So you could do that if you were manually to come in here and check. You could manually quarantine a host, but let's say we want to automatically do that. So you would set up an automation stitch where basically you're going to set a trigger and then an action. So if we name this, let's just say quarantine, we're going to enable this for all FortiGates. So our trigger, we're going to say, is block compromised host. So that's our trigger. Once the FortiGate recognizes that there's a compromised host on the network, it's going to activate that trigger. And then what action do we want to take when that happens? So we want to block that client from the network. So just some with the FortiAPs and the FortiSwitches, you can do that right directly on the access layer. So you can put that host into a quarantine VLAN where they're basically disconnected from everything besides, like, let's say a Windows server. So if they were running some old OS on their device and we wanted them to upgrade, you could do that directly here, and it would basically put them into that quarantine VLAN and basically not allow them to access anything on the network. You can also add further actions there. So if a device was recognized as compromised, you want to set up an alert. You want to know that actually happened. So you can set up an email. So it would directly send out an email. You can also set up a FortiExplorer notification. So that's a device that you would download, an application that you would download on your phone through the App Store. And it would send you a push notification to your phone. You can also integrate with Microsoft Teams or Slack, where it would automatically notify a Slack channel or Microsoft Teams channel that this event happened. There's all these other different options here. You can, if you have a FortiNAC in your environment, you can do quarantining from the FortiNAC, where you get a little bit more control over what you want to happen with the VLANs and such. And then we also have FortiClient, which is endpoint security. So you can tell the FortiEMS, which is endpoint management server, you can quarantine a host directly from the EMS there. No, I know that I did cover a lot there. The last thing I just want to touch on is the logging and reporting. So if you come under system events here, you can look under wireless events. Let's see here, it's not loading. But there's a wireless events in here. For whatever reason it wasn't loading, but you get just some logging here. So basically, just want to recap really quickly because I did just cover a lot there. It's very easy to deploy and manage these via your FortiGate through what we call FortiLink. If you're doing a FortiSwitch, you would set up your FortiLink interface on your FortiGate. You would plug in your switch. You would then authorize that switch from the FortiGate, and then you would set up your different VLANs and any other profiles that you wanted to set up, and you would configure your ports on your switches through the FortiGate. Same thing for the FortiAP. Plug in the FortiAP, shows up under managed APs. You would authorize it, and then you would configure your radio and your SSIDs, and then assign those to the AP. Ready to go. And then you also get the additional like dashboards and reporting and such directly from the AP as well. So I did just cover a lot there. Normally I would stop for questions, but I'm going to just plow right through here. And the last thing that I wanted to cover was the FortiLAN Cloud. That's the cloud management option that we have as well. It's not as popular as the FortiGate option because that is our bread and butter product. Most people have a FortiGate in their environment, and it also, the total cost of ownership is super low because it doesn't require any additional management licensing. The only thing you need is the support licensing. So it's a way lower cost of ownership. But if you did want to manage these from the cloud, or if you didn't have a FortiGate in your environment, we have the FortiLAN Cloud for you. So to access that, you would come under support.fortinet.com, and you would log into your FortiCloud account. So I'm going to go ahead and get logged in here and just approve my token. And now I'm signed in here. And then under services, you would click on FortiLAN Cloud. And this is your landing page when you sign into FortiLAN Cloud. It just gives you a really high level overview of what's kind of going on in your environment. And you would create those different networks for different logical networks for your different like branches or such. You then, let's just say there's a default combined default network that was made. So I use that. I have one switch deployed with FortiLAN Cloud. So this is what it's going to basically kind of look like. Gives you another high level overview of that specific network there. And then if we go under switches, switch dashboard, this is what the dashboard is going to look like. Again, I just have one switch that is enabled for FortiLAN Cloud. So you would get a lot more information for the more devices that you have here. You get a topology look. And then under switches here, you would do the deploy switches like I covered in the slide deck. And then you would apply tags, and then you apply specific profiles to those tags. So once you tag a switch, they would automatically get pushed down whatever like VLAN settings that you've applied to that tag. So and the only thing that you really need to deploy these to FortiLAN Cloud is basically they just need to have internet access. So the APs and the switches, just make sure that they have internet access, and they should automatically reach out to FortiLAN Cloud and check in with FortiLAN Cloud. So if you go under configuration, these are the different configuration options that you have from the cloud. So we have zero touch configurations as well. So these are super convenient for really easy deployment where it's zero touch, like it says. Basically, once they check in, they automatically get pushed down whatever profile that you would assign to them. So basically, you would just plug them in. They would check in the FortiLAN Cloud, automatically download whatever configurations that you want, and you're ready to go. So super easy to manage these. You can do scheduled upgrades. You can do backups and restores. If you click under reports here, you can just get some information on the different ports. So I have a couple things plugged in here. You can see what speed that they're plugged into, if they have PoE status enabled, if they're delivering power. So you get like a really good look into what's going on with your different switch ports here. And then if you go under interfaces, this is where you're going to be basically setting up your access mode ports. So I'm using these VLANs on these specific ports. If you wanted to change that, you would just hit edit configure interface VLAN, and you would set whatever VLAN that you want to be operating on that port. So super easy. Like I was showing you, and then you can also do packet captures directly from FortiLAN Cloud. And then if you wanted to do layer 3 switching, there's an additional license for that. It's the advanced management feature license. But you can push down different layer 3 routing to the switches as well. And then you have the monitor here, so you can just do some basic monitoring of your environment like I was showing you before. Same thing is going to go for wireless. I don't have any APs in my FortiLAN Cloud, so I don't have a lot to show you here, but it's essentially going to be the same thing as what the FortiSwitch is going to look like. I did just want to touch on that very briefly. So if we have additional questions, I can do an additional demo for FortiLAN Cloud because it's going to be a little bit different, obviously, than what FortiLink is. But I just wanted to show you this additional management and deployment feature as well. That's going to basically do it for this demonstration. I did cover a lot there. So I just wanted to do a brief kind of high level overview again. So basically, like if you were to go through a deployment and configuration, the switch, you would set up your FortiLink, plug in your switch, authorize your switch, set up your different VLANs, and then apply those VLANs to the ports. For the switches, or for the FortiAPs, don't need that dedicated link. You can plug those in anywhere in your network. The FortiGate should automatically discover those APs, go into your managed APs, authorize those, provision your radios with the radio profile, and then your different SSIDs, and then assign those to the AP. So Super easy, all done directly from the FortiGate. That single pane of glass, as the marketing people like to say, all of it is managed directly from your FortiGate on that one single user interface. So it's very, very easy, no additional licensing costs. And then you could also manage them just standalone mode or from FortiLAN Cloud. So that's going to do it for my demonstration today. I'd just like to thank you guys for your time and have a great rest of your day. Take care, guys.